They hid the female SEAL for 6 years. Then Commander forced her into a deadly mission. They told her to forget how to be dangerous. The words had haunted Elena Cross for 6 years. 6 years buried under paperwork, spreadsheets, and fluorescent lights. Her former life erased as neatly as a deleted line of text. But the past doesn't vanish, it waits. The call came on a rain-slick Tuesday, the kind of day where the Carpathian sky pressed low and gray. Elena was summoned to a secure briefing room deep inside Naval Special Warfare Command. At the head of the table stood Commander Rachel Morland, steel-gray hair pulled tight, eyes sharper than the maps behind her. "Elena," Morland said, voice flat as a blade. "You've been ghosting under logistics specialist. That cover ends now." On the table lay a folder stamped with red ink, classified, eyes only. Photographs spilled out satellite captures of a fortified compound buried in the Carpathian ridges, guard towers, floodlights, convoys snaking up dirt roads. In the corner of every frame, crates marked with Cyrillic stencils, Dmitry Karasov. Morland continued. "Former GRU. Now warlord. He's moving MANPADS surface-to-air missiles across civilian air corridors. If they get through, commercial flights turn into coffins. We estimate the shipment is staged to move within the next cycle." Elena's throat tightened. "And you want me to? You're the only one who can..." "Your cover held this long because no one looks twice at a logistics officer. That's the leverage we need. You'll infiltrate, catalog, confirm, and when the time is right, you open the door." Elena's hand hovered over the folder. 6 years pretending the trigger pull was behind her. 6 years of swallowing the reflex that still hummed in her bones. Morland leaned closer, voice dropping. "Give me 18 hours. Pack light. Burn the rest. What happens after you already know how it ends?" For a long moment, Elena studied the photographs. Men with rifles silhouetted under floodlights, trucks lined with tarps, a windowless warehouse that seemed to breathe secrets. Her fingers closed around the folder. The weight of paper was nothing compared to what it meant. Every shadow she thought she'd escaped was waiting to claim her again. Elena Cross stood. The past didn't vanish. It only waited for permission. And tonight, it had it. Before we go further, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. Welcome to Stories That Salute. Stay with us for more untold missions. 18 hours later. Elena walked through the steel doors of a hangar that smelled of jet fuel and cordite. Inside, men and women in muted fatigues worked like a clock, weapons racked, optics checked, radios calibrated. This wasn't a unit the world acknowledged. This was Phantom Group, a name that didn't exist on any roster. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Vale looked up from a sniper rifle the length of his arm, scar bisecting his brow, grin sharp as broken glass. "So the ghost comes home," he said. "Hope you didn't forget how to breathe through chaos." Around him, Sergeant Cade Rourke, Demolition's calm hands, eyes that never blinked, Lieutenant Area Monroe, signals headset already tuned to a dozen frequencies. 2 operators Elena didn't recognize, their gear unmarked, movements efficient. Vale slid a tablet across. "Compound's perimeter here, here, and here. Rotations on the towers are sloppy. Floodlights leave shadows between the fuel tanks and admin building. We insert by Osprey. Drop at a ridge 2 clicks out. Overwatch covers with suppressed fire. You slip in under the blind spots." Elena traced the map with a fingertip. Every weakness stood out like ink bleeding through paper. "Extraction MH-60 Black Hawk on stealth standby," Vale said. "If we stay quiet, she plucks us clean. If the place lights up, we've got a CH-47 Chinook on contingency heavy lift. More room to survive the mess." Elena nodded once. The plan was tight, too tight. War never respected blueprints. They geared up. Vale passed her a sidearm, but her eyes fell on the long case resting against the wall, inside a suppressed SR-25 tuned for distance. She lifted it with the familiarity of an old scar reopening. The rifle fit her like it had been waiting. "Your lead recon," Vale said. "Confirm what Karasov's hiding. If it's MANPADS, you flag it. No one pulls a trigger until you say—" The words pressed like a vice. For 6 years, no one had asked Elena Cross for permission. Tonight, her word would decide who lived. Engines roared outside the hangar. The Osprey crouched on the tarmac, rotors already spinning the night into a storm. As Phantom Group filed aboard, a last-minute feed blinked on Aria's console. Satellite intercept, grainy, jagged lines of Cyrillic. She translated on the fly convoy departing. Tonight? Vale's grin vanished. "They're already moving," Elena's pulse hammered. What was supposed to be 18 hours of preparation had just shrunk to nothing. The Osprey lifted into darkness, its blades tearing the night apart, and with it, every second left to breathe. Elena moved like memory, so rehearsed her muscles acted before thought. By day she wore Sarah Mitchell's smile-forged papers, practiced small talk, a clipboard that made her invisible. The town outside Karasov's compound smelled of diesel and wet stone. Vendors shouted, trucks idled, guards traded cigarettes. Elena drifted through it all, eyes working like a recorder. She didn't take notes for drama. She collected habits. The Northgate sentry smoked 10 seconds longer every rotation. One kennel dog ignored anything that smelled of machine oil. An eastern camera blinked blind whenever low clouds swelled. Each flaw stitched into her map until the compound stopped looking like a fortress and started to look like a pattern she could play. After sundown, she shed Sarah Mitchell. Dark jacket, rope at her belt, hair tucked under a cap, simple things that kept lights from finding her. The concrete wall rose cold in moonlight, scarred with razor wire. She found the blind angle, breathed once, and climbed. A shallow cut across her palm stung. She kept moving. Inside. The compound smelled of hot metal and diesel. Generators hummed like distant hearts. Elena slipped between pallets, shadow tight against corrugated siding. The admin wing looked ordinary file cabinets. Half-drunk mugs, but ordinary hid carelessness better than any lock. Gloved hands rifled drawers, passcodes scrawled on envelopes, schedules tucked into forgotten folders, a repeated sequence on the back of a receipt, each scrap a key. She photographed them with a thumb-sized lens, encrypted the bursts, and pushed the packets through Phantom's worm. A whisper in her throat, Echo 7 inside. Vale answered calm. 2 clicks out. You're green. The deeper she went, the thinner the disguise became. Humanitarian stamps masked crates that sagged like they carried lead. A ledger's roots looped in ways no civilian chain would. A service corridor smelled of bleach. A false wall gave way. Behind it, racks of tubes, black and cushioned, the length of an arm. Not relics modern. Compact. Ready. One launcher could erase an airliner. Dozens meant terror with a map. Elena's breath pinched. She worked fast photo bursts, tags, cross-refs, each shutter a small, irreversible accusation. Curiosity pulled her lower through a maintenance hatch. The air grew sharper solvent, industrial bleach, metal tang that stung at the back of her throat. Drums stood in rows, seals stamped with hazard symbols, smaller canisters mouthed warning glyphs. She swept her lens once, chalked a discreet demolition sigil, and moved on enough proof for Phantom. Not enough for headlines. At a desk, one line in the ledger cut through her control. Transport window active, in motion. Her stomach turned. Danny's voice split the silence. Clipped and urgent, Echo 7. Convoy prepping at Gate 3. Multiple trucks. The compound's music snapped into percussion fast. Sharp. Impossible to ignore. Options flickered through her like signal checks: abort and vanish. Call in a strike and hand Karasov propaganda, or stay inside the ghost's skin and keep the operation clean. Ghosts didn't panic. Ghosts chose. She slid the ledger back, tucking her camera under her jacket, and moved toward the courtyard. Then she heard it small, almost courteous against tile. A boot's scrape. Her body answered before her mind. She flattened into shadow, eyes carving the dark. A silhouette crossed the corridor, broad shoulders, rifle lowered, head turning. The man's breath was a slow tide. Elena's hand found the blackened knife at her belt. 1 second to decide: strike and risk noise, or slip deeper and trust the dark. Her lungs held. The guard paused, then shifted. The scrape came again. Closer, his shadow fell across her boot. Elena's breath eased, her hand rose, knife ready, and the world shattered into claxons. Alarms shrieked through the compound, red strobes slicing the dark into jagged frames. Elena struck first knife quick, silencing the guard before his radio could spark. The base was awake now. Guns would be boiling from every hall. Convoys rolling. Danny's voice snapped through her comm. Copy, package confirmed, exfil green. Her words were steady, though her pulse hammered. She ghosted up a stairwell, boots barely whispering on concrete. Phantom's Overwatch cut windows of survival into the chaos, Jake freezing cameras. Lynn's rifle dropping threats before they knew they were seen. Each step deeper felt like balancing on a razor. Suppressed bursts erased guards mid-breath. A knife in the dark finished the rest. The operations office glowed with blue monitors. At its center, Dmitry Karasov, the man she had studied in grainy recon stills. He fumbled for a pistol, arrogance slower than fear. Their eyes met, one heartbeat of history strung on a trigger. Elena broke it. The shot cracked soft, and Karasov crumpled, his empire folding in silence with him. Target neutralized. Copy. Vale answered, voice like stone, charges primed. 2 minutes. The floor heaved as Phantom's explosives gutted the storage bays. Racks of missiles collapsed in fire and steel, smoke roaring upward. Elena ran with it, letting the chaos wrap her like armor. Guards staggered blind into haze. She cut them down in rhythm. Each shot a drumbeat. Lynn's calm voice guided her. Clear south path open. Engines roared. Trucks fishtailed toward the gate. Tarps snapping back to reveal missile tubes. Elena stitched a driver's window with surgical bursts. The vehicle slewed into a wall, its deadly cargo trapped. Gate 3 blocked. Convoy stalled. Good. Bird inbound. 90 seconds. Vale's voice stayed iron. Floodlights speared the yard. Elena sprinted low, lungs burning, smoke curling at her heels. A spotlight found her, then shattered under Lynn's shot. She hit the south wall, clawed upward. A hand latched her boot. Yanking hard, Elena let herself fall with the pull, rolled, and drove a kick that hurled the attacker backward. Engines overhead, Danny barked. Rotor thunder built the Chinook, chewing open the night. Phantom's chem lights blinked beyond the wall. A breadcrumb trail home. Elena vaulted, dropped into mud, sprinted for the glow. Hands hauled her aboard as detonations rippled behind them. Fire climbed the sky, chasing the rising aircraft on the deck. Elena collapsed, chest heaving, vision ringed with sparks. Vale crouched, visor ghosting his face. He didn't speak, just gave a single nod. Behind them, Karasov's fortress burned. Ahead, a new encrypted feed blinked alive on her display. The mission was done. The war had only shifted its mask. The Blackhawk dwindled into the night, its rotors carving the darkness until only the echo of steel and smoke lingered in the mountains. Inside the cabin, silence weighed heavier than the gear strapped to the deck. Phantom Group worked in practiced rhythm, checking weapons, sealing cuts, trading nods that carried the language of survivors. Elena sat in her harness, every muscle screaming, the sleeve of her jacket torn and darkened with blood. Yet her eyes stayed locked on the horizon, unblinking, as though the fire of Karasov's compound still burned behind her eyelids. The place they'd left behind was already fading into rumor. A scar hidden in ridgelines few maps dared to mark. Only those who had walked its smoke would ever know it existed. Across the cabin, Commander Morland leaned forward. She didn't offer orders or speeches, just a look steady, deliberate, carrying more weight than all the years of dismissal Elena had endured. For 6 years she had been buried in files. Disguised as a logistician, no one noticed. Tonight had stripped that cover bare. Elena shut her eyes. Faces surfaced in memory, the guard whose boot scrape had nearly ended her. Danny's calm whisper guiding her through chaos. Vale's grin vanishing when the convoy rolled. The men who once dismissed her as invisible. War never delivered clean victories. It carved scars into survivors and demanded they carry them without complaint. Yet through the ache, she understood. Strength wasn't measured by medals or headlines. It was forged in the moments when no one was watching. When the mission depended on shadows and silence. When survival was the only reward. Her comm still pulsed with the encrypted file coordinates. Names, a ghost of another fight already forming. Proof that battles never ended with extraction. They only shifted their faces. But for now, inside the roar of engines and the cold bite of night air. Elena allowed herself one steady breath. She had walked into darkness, seen what waited inside, and walked out whole. That was enough until the next call. The lesson she carried was simple, brutal, unshakable. Sometimes the quietest shadows strike the hardest, and sometimes the forgotten are the ones who change everything.